So, all right, Trevor, thank you for submitting your cube. We're excited to have it part of the event. So let's jump off. Tell me, title of the cube and what it's all about.
Yeah, so this is my Artisan Cube or Peasant Cube. They're interchangeable terms. But basically, I kind of designed this to be a playground of the kind of magic I like, which tends to be creature focused, playing to the board style magic. And it's just a place to showcase limited all stars from all throughout Magic's history. Games are designed to go, reasonably late. There's no like, there are some crazy combos, but it usually kind of my overall rule is if you're doing something really crazy, you got to dip into like at least three or four colors,
Oh, okay.
and kind of have to get a little hooked up, or it just has to happen like pretty late in the game when the aggro decks have a chance to get you before you can really blast off. So I try to keep everything a little pruned so there's nothing
Mhm.
super crazy going on.
Yeah, it does feel good how you mentioned like your limited all stars. Like when you open up that pack one pick one, you're like, oh, look at all these like two for ones, right? Like it feels good.
Yeah, I really want people when they draft the cube to notice cards that they really enjoy drafting in their retail environments.
Mhm.
Because so many of those cards just never get to shine outside of those spaces. Um, and I just have a huge soft spot for a lot of those cards. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, that makes sense. So like, because the big question, like, I'm trying to wonder. I wonder if there's like a deeper perspective of clearly uncommons and uncommons in it. Like, have you ever had
right.
any issues of like, man, I wish I could access this rare, or you're like, hey, this is the restriction.
No, I mean, I just did that. Never even look at. Yeah, it's not even an option for me.
Yeah.
There are some, several cards that were printed at rare that have been downshifted
Mhm.
that I include.
They pay attention to it. Yeah.
But like, I don't really see it as a restriction. Um, as more of just like that's just not the cards you're playing with.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I don't know really how else to
yeah.
put it.
Well, it's just
It
what.
doesn't feel like a restriction anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good.
Especially because the land options have gotten
Oh,
reasonably
that's a good
better.
point.
Because that's the biggest blind spot is the lands. Obviously, rare lands are the more powerful and iconic
Yeah, yeah.
ones. But
No, that's a good question. Kind of like that can affect the speed of the cube then, right? Because a lot of the uncommon and common lands will come into play tapped. So have you
yeah,
played
for
around with
sure.
that?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I've done in the land space is added the landscapes from Modern Horizons, or yeah, Modern Horizons 3, um, instead of the tapped tri lands from Alara block.
Okay.
Um, so
These are the fetch
no,
tri lands, right?
we're
Or
correct.
the
Yeah,
fetch tri basics. Yeah.
yeah. They're so they do come in untapped if you don't need the color, which is nice if you're just using it for a splash, or do you already got hooked up with your colors. Um, and then also they're worse, I would say, than the tapped lands in most other respects because you can only get one, the one color.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So, and with the idea already that the more powerful parts of the cube are gated behind running three or more colors, that's just a kind of an inherent throttle on
Mm.
how good those things can be because the getting the colors is such a challenge sometimes.
Okay. Cool. 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 I mean, that's a good design, a good tool to use to be able to craft your cube, right? And a little knob to tune on it. I like it.
Yeah,
Is a pan glacial worm, is that an uncommon or a rare?
I
I
believe that's a
think
rare,
I think it's a
but
rare.
I do not know.
This
It's not
previous
in the
week.
cube in any case.
Yeah, I know. The only reason I bring that up is because the past weekend I had three pan glacial worms and a bunch of those fetches, so it's trying to make it work. I made it work once. That was in Abe's cube in the
It
Enemy
is a
Masters.
rare. It is definitely a rare,
Okay, okay, yeah,
and for some reason, it costs more than a can of Coca Cola. So, which
yeah.
is a travesty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, cool, cool. Oh, that. one of the questions I was thinking about talking to the cube designers here of when a new set comes out, because we have Tarkir coming out now and we have a lot of discussion going on it. But you as a designer thinking about your cubes and then specifically the Artisan Cube, like do you just like don't look at rares or mythics? Like I don't care about that. I'm only going to look at what's available in my cube. How do you analyze a new
Yeah.
set?
So for this cube in particular, usually I come at it after I've drafted the set for a bit,
Okay,
just to
okay,
know what that, especially when you have like new mechanics and like mechanics that might seem like, oh, maybe a little parasitic, like start your
mm,
engines would be a good example.
right,
It's
yeah,
like how, if you just had one of those cards or like this particular card and nothing else in the cube cared about start your engines, how much would that like take away from it?
yeah.
Um, and so there's nothing like that in the new Tarkir set except for three color cards, which I don't currently have any. So if I
Oh, that's
were
good
to
to know.
include
I
some,
didn't know that. Yeah, makes sense. So you're
yeah,
talking about your lands, well, access to which lands you have. But okay,
yeah, I guess since we're on the topic of like colors,
yeah,
something I've definitely intentionally done in this cube is kept the pips low, and like I have a lot of single color cards,
okay,
um, intentionally because I think a lot of cube designers, especially if they're just starting out, think that adding more multicolored cards makes it easier to be or better to be multicolored or something like they're like linked, but it's actually kind of the opposite, I think.
okay.
Um,
Hot take, Trevor. Hot
because
take.
because it just forces you to do it. It doesn't necessarily make it better.
Okay. Well,
Whereas
what?
if
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
so, if you have like more powerful cards that are just one single color, then the incentive to splash for that card and the ease of doing so is a lot less than if you had like a three color cards because all of a sudden then your splash is actually taking away from you getting those other colors of mana
Hmm.
that you need to also cast that spell.
Right. So that's an interesting take because you're making sure that the single color cards with one pip is so powerful because there is an assumption that a colored card or has three colors in it is going to be more powerful
Sure.
than a single color card. But that's cool with the cube design. I haven't thought about that angle. Like that's a nice little nuance you have in there of your card selection needs to have a high level of power in that rarity level.
Yeah, I also like how it just makes the draft a lot more freeform. So like if you take, say there was just a really good three color card in the draft, and then you took it, then all of a sudden you're just, oh, well, I'm playing these three colors, or at least trying really hard to.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're drafting this and you're kind of in a blue red deck and happen to have like the teamer landscape and maybe like another tapped land that would let you splash green, and you see like a Fey offering, it's like all of a
Mm.
sudden you're like, hey, I can cast two spells a turn pretty easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's throw this card in here for basically a low barrier of entry. Even so, and then you're all of a sudden your blue red deck now has access to all these green cards you might not have been paying attention to. But it wasn't
Yeah.
like forced on you, you discovered it.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And I like that idea because it makes the replayability of your cube much longer, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
because really just like the frequency of new cards coming out and that tool there, that design tool really allows you to keep it fresh. Cool. That's a good idea. So leading into the next question then is because we've been playing this, has it been 2 years? Maybe longer, right?
I
It's
I
been a
might be
while.
able to
Like
see on Cube Cobra
oh
when
yeah,
I
your first update
read the
there.
list.
Well, as you look, my question is like, over this time, were there any like tough decisions as you're like updating it of like, oh, I really want to keep this in here, but it's just not as powerful, or like maybe this idea that I originally thought was cool to you just didn't really pick up with the community, right? The drafters.
Yeah, um, I'm pretty easy going to let things go in this cube. If I throw it in because it's a new card, and then I just don't like the way it plays or whatever. I definitely don't have a problem taking it out. There's a couple of cards that I think are maybe a little too good that I just really
Mm,
like. Um, the one that immediately comes to mind is Soul Herder.
okay. Yeah.
Um, it's just like a little too singularly powerful. If you just have a Soul Herder and like something else,
Hmm.
it's gonna like run away with the game. Um, Another one of those is Gut.
Mm, yeah.
But on the other hand, I do have like a ton of interaction.
Mm.
Um, and it's just a 2/2.
It's just a gray ogre, right? That was our
Yeah,
conversation today. It's just another
right.
gray ogre. What are you talking about?
Which might be a little reductive, but I've definitely beaten Guts that had a
Yeah.
pretty good start because I got a value engine started that just
Yeah.
outpaced it.
You don't have necessarily, I don't think you have any too much fast mana or fast mana rocks. And that's the problem in the
Mm.
vintage cube with the gut. What makes it so strong. You like Soul Ring Mox or whatever super fast that you can sack to make that 4/1. So
Yeah,
you kind of balance that out.
there's not much in the way of that. I mean, there are like a lot of trinket tokens like Clueless Foods and
Hmm.
treasures, but not a ton.
Yeah. And then going back to the Soul Herder, that's the blinker, right? You can blink at the end of the end of turn.
Yeah,
Blink.
so it blinks on your instep
Hmm.
and gets bigger.
Yeah. You were talking about like the three color cards earlier, how I always get sucked into the blink deck or the flash or the flicker deck. And like, because I'm always like, oh, Mana War, that's a great card. I'll just play that on its own, And then like the thing that makes the three Kithkin tokens, Cloud Goat Ranger. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, dang it, I'm in the blink deck again, right? Oh, Soul Herder, like so, like I kind of get like shoved in or like get on rails on that deck if I'm not careful. So
Yeah,
as a power level
that
and
can
it's strong, right? Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think that's maybe a pitfall of just having a lot of cards that I guess are kind of pet cards for a lot
hmm,
of people.
yeah,
Cloud Guard Ranger is like an all-time classic for anyone who's been
yeah,
playing Magic for a long time.
yeah, yeah.
That doesn't really get played in a ton of cubes anymore.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people do jump on the chance to play it.
Well, I believe you mentioned like talking about cubes, how they're never necessarily efficient because we all have our pet cards in it. But like, I'm an advocate of having a pet card, right? Like, annoying. Like, I guess who did I upset? Was it Sam Black where I had in my mono blue two where the mines you shuffle your library
Oh,
or your
Clear the
graveyard.
Mind.
Clear the mind. I had two clear the minds in there. He's like, you shouldn't have that in there. I'm like, but I like having two. I will break singleton rule for the
Yeah,
those two cards.
I did have Clear the Mind loops in here, but I took it out because it never really took off.
Yeah, I tried it one time. I got both of them because you have the saga, right? That does it on the third.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Bath song.
yeah. It's trying to do the thing.
Yeah, I
So
I just don't think that kind of deck is. If you want to do that kind of deck, I think it's still possible.
yeah.
Um, Maybe I'd
So,
also take this out, but I used to have it where you could like turbo mill and then have a card that puts a card from your graveyard on top of your library. So you basically
okay.
demonic tutor every turn because your library's empty.
That's cool. Like, or is it vulnerable? What's the thing that puts it on top?
There's a couple different
Oh,
ones. I
okay.
think the one I had was Rhino Sentinel because that one also mills.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um,
Yeah, because you're like, well, we'll just blow that up, and you're like, no, I did the thing, but you gotta
well, you
live.
just need to save the mana so you can fit like 5 or 6 really good
I see.
cards on top, and
Yeah,
usually you can still win.
yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, speaking about that, that'd be cool. I like if you saw that, like, kind of unlocking an achievement there. Are there any memorable moments from your cube from people playing it that are awesome that you'd want to
Um,
share?
Whenever you get a Sky Turtle loop going,
Mm.
that's always a good time. I think I added another enabler for that with the last update. Um,
Yeah, I think I got looped
yeah,
by Baby Nate. He got that going on me, and I'm like, I'll let you keep doing it because it is awesome. But I'm like, well done.
the aristocrat strategy in this cube is like intentionally not as good as it could be.
Mm,
So
okay.
when you get a deck that super does that super efficiently, I think that's a lot of fun. Um, but I mean, I love basically every card in this cube, so
Well, you know
it's
what?
all good.
Some strategy that I learned from playing, Artisan Peasant cubes is aristocrats always beats blink. Like you just it's like it just always beats it because like I said, I get like kind of stuck into a blink deck. I've
Yeah.
played blink more often than that, and I'm like always beat by the aristocrat deck. So then I'm like, I'm just gonna play aristocrats if I'm trying to win.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see how that could happen for sure.
Could be different with your cube. Like, right?
Yeah,
I don't know the last time I drafted Blink in your cube, but cool. All
there's
right.
some heaters.
Yeah, yeah. Good, good, good. Well, which leads into the next question then. So, if someone is new to your cube and playing it for the first time, what's a good tip you would give them to help them navigate through the draft and then during the play session?
I would say, draft it like you kind of would a limited and retail limited environment. You need to eat your vegetables. You got to have some removal, some interaction. Take your fixing early, but definitely, if you see something that you think's gonna be fun, like I would just go for it.
Yeah.
Um, because it's probably good if you think it's
Mm.
fun and it's in there. And if you get hooked up, then those are even if you only go like 1-2 or something, those are the drafts you remember.
Yeah, you did the thing, right? Like you took the shot and it'll work out. Yeah, yeah, it's cool. I'm a proponent for trust the cube designer, right? If you see something in there, just believe it can happen and it will happen.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
that's a great one to be.
Right on. All right, Trevor. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing your cube drafted at CQC Spring 2025.